Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Psychic Medium Raymond Guzman, and this is a celebrity psychic reading on Miss Aretha Franklin. And I'm just doing this on the day that it was reported. I'm doing it today, which is the day that she has been all over the news that she was hospitalized and she's in grave condition. So I just wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about Miss Aretha. Back in 2016, I had did my yearly celebrity predictions, and I had predicted that her health would be deteriorating, and I had seen that her health would be deteriorating. She had already had the pancreatic, or the cancer scare before, and they said that she had recovered and she was back to normal. But I knew that that wasn't the case. That was the media and the propaganda putting that out there. But I actually had seen a decline in health, and you can go to my website to check that out, that I had made that prediction. So I knew that her health issues are not coming from now. I don't feel like she ever recovered from the cancer. It was there, but it was being managed, and I feel like she's been struggling, and it's been an uphill battle. That's what I'm getting from spirit. And I feel like her soul is getting ready to possibly cross over, but she's making a decision. Her soul is fighting, to stay here, but I feel like her prana, or what we call prana, is the life essence of the soul of the person, and I feel like it's very weak. And I do feel like what I'm hearing from my guides and her guides is that she is preparing to transition over. So there's a lot of people who are, the doctors are fighting, but I don't feel like it was just the pancreatic cancer. I feel like it did spread and affect other organs, but I also feel like she would have had other health issues as well, with her blood sugar and her blood pressure being a little low. I feel like she had other, ailments as well, weakening of the bones, um, muscles deteriorating, and so it's very sad, for all of you that are listening into this video today. Please take a moment after this, listening to this, to just give some prayers and send some prayers out to Miss Aretha Franklin. She's had a beautiful career. She's a very, very strong lady. I feel like she's been through a lot early on in her career. She would have faced discrimination from a lot of the men, in particular, and that's what I'm getting, because she was one of these people that was very influential, and she has at the soul level, she has very masculine energy at the soul level, which she could hold her own against a group of men. So like when she was back in the 60s and 70s, when she would have been performing, and back then, in that time, in that era, it wasn't so predominant for a female to have that much success. And she broke records, and she had that success, and she continued. So I feel like, overall, she has experienced everything in the industry, and she looks at a lot of these youngins, as she would probably call them, these younger generations that are, inspired by her and her music. And she knows, deep down, regardless of what happens to her, that she has made a difference in the world, and she has impacted a lot of people, and that's what her legacy will always be remembered for, regardless of what happens, whether she continues to fight this or she would cross over. She's going to continue to, her legacy will live on. And I feel like, she's done everything. She's traveled the world. There's nothing really that she hasn't done, and hasn't, nothing that hasn't been unsaid. I feel like, she had made preparations before, all of this is going down today, but I feel like she had made preparations about, 2 to 3 years ago. She would have already made preparations ahead of time. She's not one to just, leave things outstanding. So with Miss Aretha, I feel like she had everything, you know, set out. The one thing that I do feel like, when she would perform on stage and during concerts, like the VH1 Divas, for those of you that grew up in the 90s, or that, were, very in tune with music in the 90s, there was this 1997, 98, I believe, there was the VH1 Divas, and there was Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, as well as a lot of other, Gloria Estefan, and I think other singers that were there. And she performed with these younger ladies, and I remember, a lot of them, really admired her. I feel like, at a certain point, she was like, I am the queen, in y'all can't take my throne. That's the kind of, but all in fun. I don't feel like she was a diva herself, or someone that's very rude. She just has that bigger than life personality, and that's who she is. And she is an earth angel in many ways. I feel like she came to earth and changed the game in the music industry and brought soul, something that we hadn't had, very prevalent with a lot of artists. There's Ella Fitzgerald, and those are kind of bluesy, rocky, and then other singers out there that kind of were like Aretha. But I feel for the most part, Aretha, when you hear it, you think of hits like Respect, and you think of the soul that she has behind music. So yeah, what I'm getting is that she would have made preparations, and when she was on stage, performing, I feel like this is when she would have been this, feeling the most alive. Like she came alive in the stage at the soul level. So any of her performances, she always gave her all, and she's always, given her all in everything that she's done. I also feel like she also had something to do with Whitney Houston, as far as like trying to, I believe they did have some kind of conversation. That's what I'm getting from Spirit before Whitney, passed. And she did, try to impart a lot of advice. So Miss Aretha, she gave a lot of advice to a lot of people. A lot of these younger celebs would go to her, or look up to her, and she was like their mom, in many ways. She would give them the advice. So like I said, regardless of what happens to her, she's going to be leaving a legacy behind, and she is, I feel like she is going to be free like a butterfly. She's done so much and accomplished so much in her time, and inspired so many that are actually going through this illness, are battling cancer right now. To not give up on the fight. And, she is a true testament to this, because I believe she would have already been fighting this either 2 to 3 years, the cancer. And it's not easy. The likelihood of surviving pancreatic cancer, like Patrick Swayze had, and other people out in the world, it's very hard to survive something like that. The chances of survival are minimal, but I just see her being someone that is very inspired. I feel like also in her her songs and the songwriting that she's done, there's been a lot of her life that's been told through her songs, but a lot of people don't know that about Miss Aretha. I think a lot of people just think that she sang songs that other people wrote, but I feel like she was very hands-on and meticulous with this, and she told her story and got her, her point across to the world, through her music of what her life was like. I feel like there would have been, a lot of depression with her in her younger years, and a lot of fluctuation with her weight. And I feel like she was one of the comfort eaters. So a lot of you that are out there that are comfort eaters, you can probably relate to this. This is someone who, is either depressed, or they don't feel so good about certain things, and they just, they start turning to food to cope with their pain or with their depression. And I feel like this is what Miss Aretha did for a while. She did go and turn to food, and so her weight fluctuated up and down, and she would have had, a lot of that. But I feel like when it comes to love as well, that she would have had some unhappiness and sadness in the love department, which is another thing that a lot of you listeners out there would be able to relate to. I feel like, she never really was happy per se. I feel like there was a lot of things that she would have experienced in her relationships that she would have had over the course of the years. Anything from, the person cheating on her to the person, and her just having arguments during the day, during, their whole relationship. So she was one, that really went through a lot. But I feel like to a certain point, she kept a lot of this private from the world, because she grew up, you have to understand, Miss Aretha comes from a different era. So this was before internet was very popular, and that we even had internet, and a lot of the social media, websites, we didn't have any of that. So she didn't have any of that when she was in that particular area. So a lot of these things were not really, brought to the public's eye or attention. And I feel like she had a darker period as well, where she would have, possibly turned to, I hate to say this, but substances very well. This doesn't have to be like hardcore drugs. This could have been just pills for pain or things like that. But I feel like she would have turned to something like this to cope with a lot of her, her issues that she's had. But one of the things that I do get from Miss Aretha was that when it came to her body, she was very, even though she did have some insecurities, and she did, most of, towards the end of, now that she's older, she learned to love herself and her body. I don't feel like she would have had plastic surgery either. This is something that she's been, would have been against completely. On having plastic surgery and anything like that. I feel like she, for the most part, would have used creams and, would have done things to minor things to preserve her beauty. But for the most part, she was very much the natural woman, like, her song, just, natural, and she embraced that. And so I think that's why a lot of inspiration, that a lot of people now will remember her, in the years to come, about her, her legacy and her core values and everything. So yeah, it's a little difficult for me and sentimental because I'm praying that she does pull through. But like I said, when I tune into her energy, and I've seen this coming for about 2 years now, I just pray, in God's name, that she makes it through this. But if for some reason, those of you that would be tuning into this, if for some reason she doesn't, just know that she is, she has come to peace with a lot of this, that, and I don't feel like she has anything left unsaid. So let us pray for Miss Aretha Franklin, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you did like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would like to set up a private reading with me, you can go to my website. That's www.raymondguzman.net/shop. Blessings and love and light.